You're riding a push bike for the very first time. You can feel the breeze tickling your face. You can hear your dad in the background encouraging you. This is the best experience ever. And then next thing you know, you just fall over and topple down. You've grazed your elbow. You're upset. You're hurt. Maybe a few tears. Your dad comes over. He encourages you to try again. You get up, back on the bike. You're going. The breeze is in your face. You feel liberated. You're doing the thing. And then you topple down again. This process keeps repeating itself. You keep getting bruised and scarred. And after a while, you still haven't figured out how to ride the bike. Do you feel like something isn't right? Do you feel like you should probably know how to ride the bike by now? But your progress isn't really a thing. You're not progressing. Then one day you realize that your dad never actually gave you training wheels. And because you didn't have those training wheels, it's taken you so long to figure out how to ride this bloody bike. But if you'd had the training wheels from the beginning, you could have laid that foundation, learn what it feels like to maneuver the bike and to try and balance with the assistance of those wheels. And once you've developed those foundational skills, after a while, with a little bit of practice, you'll be able to take the training wheels off and then ride a bike. And maybe you would have fallen down once or twice, but you wouldn't have fallen down 10, 20 times like you did before when you were just told to hop straight on the bike and to start riding without any training wheels. What's the point of this elaborate story? It's a metaphor for your experience with English ATAR. You keep falling off the bike, not getting the results that you wanted. It becomes really frustrating, but people keep telling you to just keep moving on, keep moving forward, and eventually things will start to work out for you. This module and the lessons in this module represents the training wheels that you have never gotten at school. If you don't complete this module and you don't do the activities that are associated with it, it'll be like hopping on a push bike for the very first time with no training wheel. You'll keep falling down, you'll keep hurting yourself, it'll suck, you'll get frustrated. After a while, you might eventually figure out how to do it, but you could have gotten there a hell of a lot quicker had you had the training wheels on in the first place, taken the time to develop your skills, and then take them off when you're ready, when it's time. As you progress through this module, you'll be riding your bike with the training wheels on. You'll be learning how to navigate the bike, how to do the thing with some assistance. Then once you complete this module, you'll be ready to take those training wheels off. You will be able to write the best responses your teacher, the WACE markers, have ever seen.
Everything you need to easily pass English ATAR. English ATAR made simple. Powered by Saints Coaching.
Now it's time to get into the juicy stuff. In the sidebar of videos for this module, you've probably seen a bunch of concepts that you might have heard of before. Some of them you might not have. This lesson is going to explain how and why I've selected those concepts, so you can understand how they're relevant to the bigger picture of excelling in English ATAR. The reason why I'm going to explain to you the rationale behind these concepts is because in order to effectively learn something, you need to understand how it either promotes your well-being or survival. That hopefully rings a bell from the lesson on how to learn from Module 1. Put differently, if you don't understand how a given concept in this module is important for you to learn, you probably won't remember much about it. Lesson objectives. What are we going to do in this lesson? Firstly, we'll check in with the pair. Then we'll revise the objective of Module 2. After that, we'll outline what the Bibles are. After all, this module is called Master the Bibles. Then we'll tabulate and color code past WACE exam questions. We'll color code the syllabus points. We'll list the key concepts, the concepts that you'll be learning about in this module. And then we'll understand the practical purpose of this module. First up, let's check in with the pair. Where are we in terms of overall course progress? This was you in Module 1. You'd leapt from Struggle City onto the first stone, which is understand the concepts. Remember that there are 3 stones in the past English ATAR roadmap, and each stone comprises at least one module. Stone 1, the one that we're on now, is called Understand the Concepts. And that stone comprises 2 modules. Module 1, the one that you've just completed, and Module 2, the one that you've just started. Now that you have started Module 2, it means that you can shuffle just a little bit towards the end of Stone 1. This is the final step of Stone 1. And once you complete this module, you'll leap onto Stone 2. What's the objective of Module 2? What's the main goal? What are we trying to do here? It is to understand the key concepts mentioned in the English ATAR syllabus and then apply that understanding to study texts. That's where we are in the overall scheme of the past English ATAR roadmap. Now let's get into some specifics about this module. Firstly, what are the Bibles? As you know, This module is called Master the Bibles. What are they all about? This is the cover page of Module 2, and it has a little sticker on it called AKA the Key Concepts Bible. What this means is that Module 2, all the content that you're going to learn, all the lessons, and all the study notes that accompany all the lessons, all of that stuff represents the Key Concepts Bible. But this module is called Master the Bibles, plural, so what's the other one all about? That one is a Language Features Bible. This document accompanies a lesson titled Language Features, which is the one after this one. You can download the LFB in the description area below that video. The Language Features Bible, or the LFB for short, I created the first version of this in 2017 and have created and updated versions of it over the last 5 to 6 years to eventually get to the LFB that you will be getting access to. Question for you. Have you ever had an English teacher comment on one of your assessments saying something like, greater discussion of textual features required? That is where the LFB comes in. It contains just about everything you need to know when it comes to language features. If I could choose one resource out of everything that comes included with English ATAR Made Simple, if I could have just one of those, it would be the Language Features Bible. This is the document that I wish that I had in Year 12, and I don't know why it hasn't existed up until now. I believe that it is a secret weapon to doing well in English ATAR. Honestly, I cannot emphasize that enough. Once you see it, you'll probably understand what I mean. Past WACE exam questions. You'll see in the study notes for this lesson that there's a table with all the past WACE exam questions. This screenshot has a snippet of those questions just from the comprehending section, and it has the questions from 2016 to 2021. At the time that I'm filming this, the 2021 exam is the most current on SCARS's website, but I'll update the study notes to make sure that whatever the most current exam is that SCARSA has made available to us will be included in the PDF study notes. I'm not going to go through every single exam question now because there will be plenty of time for us to engage with those questions, but I thought it would be helpful for you to have an overview of all the questions over just a couple of pages so you can easily refer to them at a moment's notice. That's how this table might be useful for you, but for our purpose now, the table is really to illustrate that every single past exam question has at least one key concept in it. Similar thing can be said about the syllabus points. I'm not going to go through all of them now because we will be engaging with the syllabus points quite a lot throughout this module, but all of them are laid out for you in the study notes. As you can see here, we've got Unit 3 on the left, Unit 4 on the right, and the first 10 points for each unit. And then on another page, you've got the next 10 points for each unit. At the beginning of basically every lesson in this module, I'm going to list all the relevant syllabus points and past exam questions for the given concept that we're learning about in that lesson. So we'll be coming back to this info a lot, but in the meantime, I'd like you to just pause the video now and have a look at the syllabus points in the study notes and the past exam questions, trying to identify some of the concepts that pop up a lot. Hopefully you've had a look at those syllabus points and past exam questions in the study notes. Let's move on. The key concepts. I've alluded to the key concepts, but what are they? I think it's really important for you to understand some context behind these key concepts in order for you to appreciate their importance. And remember, if your brain thinks some piece of information is important, that will help it remember that information. What are all these key concepts about? Why are we learning about these specific concepts at the exclusion of some others? I went through 3 main stages to arrive at the key concepts that you see in this module. Stage 1, I went through every exam since 2016, which was when your syllabus was introduced, and extracted all the key concepts that was mentioned in every single exam question. Stage 2, I went through the syllabus points and extracted any concepts that hadn't yet come up in an exam, but could at some point in the future. Stage 3, I grouped and ordered those concepts so it would be easier for you to understand how they're similar to one another and different from others. All of that is to say, if you have an understanding of each of the concepts in this module, each of the concepts that I'm about to outline for you now, you will be able to answer any exam question, period. This is why I harp on so much about the information in this course being foolproof, because it leaves no room for chance. It leaves no room for error. It covers everything that you could possibly need to know in an exam, so you're never going to be surprised. First key concept, language features. I've already spoken about the Language Features Bible. Then language patterns, structure, style, stylistic choices, stylistic features, genre, and generic conventions. Then we've got mode and medium. After that, mood, characterization, narrative point of view. Then values, assumptions, attitudes, and tone. Context, purpose, and audience. Perspective and voice. Reading, interpretation, and response. concepts, themes, issues, ideas, and finally, representation or representation. I'll explain why the hyphen is there in the lesson on representation. So those are all the key concepts. One thing you might be wondering is why the color coding and why they're grouped in that way. You'll be able to understand the key concepts easier in the groups in which they're presented, in the groups that you've just seen on the slides, and the groups that are in your study notes. The relationship between all the concepts within the groups will become much clearer as you go through the lessons, I promise. It's quite difficult for me to explain the relationships between the various concepts without actually going into what all of them mean, and we'll just be here for hours. So for now, you're just going to have to trust me that those are the groups of the concepts, and learning the concepts in those groups will make it easier for you. Those are the key concepts. Now I'd like to tell you a brief story about how understanding the key concepts benefited me in my English ATAR WACE exam. So back in my day, in 2015, the English exam consisted of 3 sections, like yours, except they were called the reading, writing, and viewing sections. In the viewing section, there was a question that mentioned genre, and I think the term was expectations of genre. I thought this was one of those questions that most students would shy away from because the term expectations of genre is not the most inviting. Knowing that this would be a question that most people wouldn't choose to answer, I thought that was an opportunity for me to distinguish myself from all the other people who were going to go for the easier questions. Because I'd studied the key concepts inside and out, I knew that the concept of genre had 2 subtypes, genre of structure and genre of subject matter. Now, don't worry if you don't know what those subtypes mean, you'll be learning about them soon. The point being is that most of us just think that there's only one type of genre, and that's the genre we think of when we think about a movie, like drama, action, comedy, romance, etc. That's genre of subject matter. I wrote about genre of structure. Fast forward about a year later, and my English teacher, shout out Mrs. Berry, invites me to speak to her Year 12 English class. After I'd spoken to the Year 12 students, Mrs. Berry informed me that my response was one of the highest scoring in the state. The moral of the story is this: if you truly understand the key concepts in English questions and engage with them in your responses, you will excel in English ATAR. It's really as simple as that. There is no chance that my viewing section response would have done as well as it did had I not taken the time to learn the key concepts. As you go through these lessons, I want you to keep in mind that you are 100% capable of achieving a similar result if you really focus on learning these concepts. And that brings me to a very important key takeaway for this lesson, and that is to complete the lessons in the order in which they're presented. I've already discussed this in Module 1 with reference to the entire course, but that couldn't be more true for Module 2. I can't tell you how long I spent arranging the lessons in Module 2 to make it as easy as possible to understand. The best way to think of this is like the process of building a house. You can't put the roof on the house without building the foundation. The same is true of the way the lessons are sequenced in this module. For example, you might get to the lesson on context, which is around halfway through this module, and I'll be assuming that you've got an understanding of all the concepts that came before that. And having that prerequisite knowledge is essential to build on top of it by learning about context. You're just going to have to trust me on this. If you, for instance, watch this lesson and then go to the 15th lesson in this module, then come back to say lesson 3, and then go to lesson 18, something like that, it will be very confusing. Understanding these concepts will not be as simple as it should be. However, if you just go through it in the order in which they're presented, lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, it'll be a very smooth ride. The last thing I wanted to touch on is the practical purpose of this module. We already understand what the objective is, but the practical purpose is really referring to what you'll end up with once you finish Module 2. If you complete the activities for each lesson in relation to 2 study texts, by the end of this module, you'll have all the notes you need for the responding section of the exam. Just soak that up for a second. The notes that you create throughout this module and the notes that you'll have by the end of it will constitute everything you need. You will not need to create any more notes about your study texts. So if you complete this module, say earlier in the year, you can just come back to it later in the year when the WACE exam comes around and you'll have all the notes that you need. Why do I recommend having 2 study texts in the arsenal? Pretty simple reason. You don't want to get into an exam, into the responding section of the exam, see all the questions and realize that the one text that you studied isn't good for answering any of these questions. You want to have that safety net and insurance policy. And that's why I recommend having 2 study texts. So that's the practical purpose of this module, for you to have all the study notes you need for the responding section of the exam. But also this applies to every assessment that you have in English ATAR. All of these concepts are taken from the syllabus. So if you understand them, you'll be able to understand every question you get in an exam, and you'll be able to engage with all the instructions and the prompts that you get in any other English assessment. That is all for this lesson. I hope it's given you a clear understanding of where we'll be going in this module and why it's important to understand the key concepts. Looking forward to seeing you in the next lesson, which will be the lesson on language features. Until then, just keep it simple.